Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Josh Korzan, and I'm an incoming first year medical student at Rush Medical College in Chicago, Illinois. And today we have the privilege of talking with Will Caruso, aka Med with Will, who's a fourth year medical student and incoming surgical resident. So he just matched into his surgical residency, which for those of you that don't know, is a huge deal. It's the culmination of everything that he's been working so hard for throughout medical school, and he just did it. So please join me in congratulating Will down in the comments below. And today, Will has been gracious enough to give us his time to talk about all things med school and what it takes to be a successful medical student. If you enjoy this video, be sure to tune into part 2 over on his channel, where we're going to talk about all things pre-med and what it takes to be a successful pre-med student. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, welcome, Will. Do you want to go ahead and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here. So my name is Will Caruso. I am a fourth year medical student about to finish medical school, starting residency in just like 1 to 2 months. So super excited about that. I matched into general surgery, so I'm going to be in the operating room a bit. A little bit nervous, but excited about that. I do have a YouTube channel as well, just like Josh, and I like to give advice for pre-med students and just kind of give some insight to like what being in medical school is like. You can also follow me on Instagram at Med with Will. And yeah, I look forward to talking with you, man.
Yeah, great to have you. Great to have you. So yeah, everyone, his YouTube channel is also Med with Will. And if you haven't already, go over there, subscribe, check out his videos. They're fantastic. And yeah, I'm just super happy to have you here today. So the first question that I have for you, rewinding a bit, because you're going into residency now. Congrats, by the way. Is rewinding, why medicine? So how did you kind of find your way to the medical field?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a non-traditional student, I believe just like yourself. And I was actually originally studying international business back in Tokyo. And it's been a very long and kind of convoluted journey for me to get to where I'm at right now. And I guess like just was saying that, for anyone out there who is, older or changing careers, it's never too late to change career to go into medicine. There's plenty of people who do it. I actually had a classmate who was 40 years old and started med school with like 2 or 3 kids. So if they can do it, you can definitely do it too. But for me in my journey, I was doing business originally, and I didn't necessarily feel like that was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do something I felt was more impactful and you make a difference in someone's life, really. And honestly, medicine is the best way to do that. I actually realized that at a different time when someone, I guess, kind of, close to me at the time got leukemia. And I remember just kind of seeing how much that impacted everyone around us. And I wanted to go, do something where I could help people like that. And then it kind of dawned upon me, I was like, medicine is that place. You get the opportunity and privilege to take care of other people during the darkest times for them. And I wanted to be a beacon of light for someone one day. And medicine allows you the opportunity to be that person for someone. So, the reason you should go to med school or go be a doctor or do anything in medicine really should be because you want to help people and you get satisfaction out of that, and you feel a sense of purpose with doing it. And for me, that was the whole reason I wanted to go to medicine, was because I felt so much purpose and power, I guess, by just being able to be there for someone in that capacity. It just is very self-fulfilling. It's just like a very, I don't know how to explain it. It's like almost like spiritually fulfilling, to be in that position of privilege to do that. So kind of a long answer, but that is kind of why I wanted to go into medicine.
That's amazing. And it's very evident the passion that you have for what you're doing now. So obviously you found the right field, and it's been really cool to see your journey. And I look forward to watching it as you proceed to residency and beyond.
Likewise, man. I look forward to seeing your journey as well.
Oh, thank you. So going to the application, what was your application process like? And then do you have any general recommendations for any future medical students or anyone applying now?
Yeah, so looking back at my application process for as a pre-med student, so I actually mistimed things as a pre-med student. I had to take a gap year. I underestimated how much I needed to prepare for the MCAT, and as a result for that, I had to push my date back. So I originally had a date that allowed me to have the MCAT done and the results done in time for the application cycle. But when it came time to take the MCAT, I was honest with myself. I'm like, I don't think I can hit the score that I feel like I need to be a competitive applicant. So I pushed it back and I had to take a gap year because of that. But I will say that gap year was amazing for me and actually probably helped me in a lot of ways with my med school application. I was able to do more like shadowing and more clinical stuff, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I would say, there's always a silver lining in what happens. And, I didn't get to time my application perfectly, but it all worked out in the end. So if you have to take a gap year, like, don't worry about that. It's going to be fine. Plenty of people take a gap year. And honestly, it's a great chance to just mentally prepare yourself for med school and, do well in the interviews, because interviewing itself can be quite a beast right there, because you have to be prepared to interview. So if you have the time to do that, that's definitely helpful. um, my application, I actually only, and might be a shock to a lot of people, I actually only got interview offer at one place, and that's the school I got into. So if you didn't get a ton of interviews, you only need one. And luckily in my case, the place, and it was actually the place I wanted to go to the most. And I guess I did well in the interview and I got in. So if you don't get a ton of interviews, it's okay. You can definitely still get in. Um, I think though, my advice to everyone out there who's listening is, try to be prepared, try to give yourself more time for the MCAT than you maybe think so originally, because I kind of underestimated how much I needed to study for it. And if I was a little bit more prepared for the whole application process and like how long the MCAT's going to take, I probably could have done it without having to take a gap year. I mean, the gap year was great, but I could have done it without it if I was just a little bit more prepared. So I'd say, like, when it comes to the application, really, prepare everything out. Um, you're going to have to go through like your AMCAS and stuff like that, and you're going to have to list out all your activities and things. So take the time. It's going to take a little bit of time to come up with a good personal statement and stuff. So just be prepared for, I guess, like, how much time that might actually take.
That's great advice. And it's funny. I think if nothing else from this too, we've shown that you're much more patient than I am, because I didn't want to take a gap year. And in fact, I took the MCAT without having had biochemistry, strictly because I didn't want to take a gap year. It's good advice, though. I have no doubt I would have done far better with that test score had I taken that gap year, took biochemistry, took more time to take more practice exams and all of that. It obviously worked out fine, but I have no doubt I would have done better with that extra time.
Yeah, I think the key thing, here is that obviously, there's multiple ways to go about this process. Josh went about it one way and I go about it a different way, and it's totally fine. Like, your journey is your journey. If you take a gap year, then great. If you don't want to take it, also great. It's just, do what feels right to you.
Absolutely. So once you got accepted and you started your M1 year, can you talk a little bit about the transition from pre-med to med student, what it was like and how you handled all of that?
Yeah, so I was lucky because I was a biochemistry major as an undergrad, and what we started off with in medical school was biochemistry. So like that was like a great. This was just very lucky for me because like a lot of my classmates were not as like did not study biochemistry as much as me. So like the transition was harder for them. So like it was a very big transition for me either way, because essentially we did like everything I studied for my biochemistry major, like, which took me like, 2 3 classes or something, as an undergrad. We covered all of that in like 1 to 2 months. So it's like, I'm like, holy crap, they just took my entire like major, like all the major classes, and just like went through all of it like so quickly. I was just like shook about that. The only reason I could keep up at the beginning was because like I've seen it before. um, but yeah, the transition to medical school, it's, we all hear about like medical school is such a hard thing. It's, it's so insane. And there is some truth to that. I do think it is a little bit hyped up. I think that's not like always that insane. It can be, like it can pile up all the things you have to learn, but it's definitely doable. I will say that. Like, for anyone out there who's like, oh my God, med school, like if I can't handle undergrad, there's no way I'm gonna handle med school. I think you can. I really do. It's not impossible. It's very doable. You're just gonna have to use your time well. Um, and make sure you're very, you're prioritizing what you need to do. But also, I will say this: there's a certain like adrenaline rush to starting medical school. It's just like, oh my god, I'm in medical school. Like I have to do well. Like I have to like succeed. And I think that like that initial adrenaline rush will help you during that transition period as well. So
Yeah. Well, that's great insight. So, would you have any general recommendations for how pre-meds awaiting the start of med school can prepare, but also to, I guess, initiate that transition once they start med school?
yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of things that is a good use of your time before you start medical school. I will say the first thing you should definitely do is just relax, just enjoy your life. Medical school is going to definitely push you, and go travel, go to the Bahamas, kick back a bit. Just be happy. You've earned it. Like you worked so hard to get into medical school. Like you deserve all like the you know just relaxation you can get. I mean, like it's a big accomplishment. So for anyone who did get into medical school, congratulations. As not an easy thing to do. Um, and I'm sure your family and friends are quite proud of you, and you should be too. So I would definitely recommend take that time for R&R, relax. But yeah, there are some things that you can do just to kind of get yourself mentally ready for med school. I do think that trying to develop like habits, like lifestyle, like habits and routines is a great thing to do as a pre-med student and before you start the med school. So like, just kind of get into the habit, yes, you want to relax a bit, but also like you don't want to just be a complete, sit around the house like couch potato all the time. You do want to like try a little bit to maintain some momentum, going into medical school. That will be helpful because once med school starts, it's like if you were just like relaxing, watching Netflix all day only, then like med school starts, it's like boom, and it's just like it just starts, and like you're gonna have to hit the ground running. So I'd say like I would go ahead and look up some of the material, just familiarize yourself with it, so it's not the first time seeing it. That would definitely go a long way. Maybe review those biochemistry pathways just a little bit. You know, look over some anatomy stuff like that. Doing that will just kind of help you mentally kind of get in the right mindset. So when med school does start, you can just hit it with the ground running.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So I have actually heard a couple people say that, take a little time off, travel if you can, and that's great advice. It's funny. I think I stumbled upon this meme a little while back, and it said something like, you know, from me, right? It said I should do some traveling, and then it said from my bank account, and it said to the backyard. So yeah, working as a part time pre med, and we don't necessarily
Yeah,
always have the funds to travel the world and see those kinds of cool places, but maybe
that's
someday.
true.
Yeah, yeah,
If you can't travel, I guess do take some time though, just to do some things that you love. Just take it easy. Med school is going to stress you plenty enough. So enjoy your time while you have it. And if you want to be a successful medical student, I think the biggest thing is just like building lifestyle habits. Start hitting the gym now. Like I will just be honest, like you should start hitting the gym right now because I think going to the gym is one of the best things you can do just to be a successful student. And I know it seems kind of counterintuitive to say that because you think that just studying more means being a better student. But in my opinion, I think being more balanced as a person means you're a better student. So I could study 8 hours a day, do nothing else, or I could study like 4 or 5 hours a day, but then also like have time to like hit the gym, hang out with friends or something, or take time for myself. And I'm going to do better in that situation than if I just studied only for 8 hours a day and did nothing else to take care of myself. So get in the habit of building some balance in your life now, and I think that'll be beneficial.
yeah. I 100% agree. Maintaining an active lifestyle and lifting, doing some cardio work, I think is going to help you relieve stress that you are no doubt accumulating along the way. But just, to maintain your mental health and just keep balance like you're talking about. So I obviously haven't made it to that part of the process yet, but those are things that I've been incorporating in my life so far and have found to be very helpful and absolutely plan to continue that through med school.
You should definitely continue that through med school, man. I made a mistake of not doing that for my first and second year, and my mental health was the worst during like that. It was really bad during that time. I think that exercise is just like it serves so many different purposes. Like, you're taking care of your physical health, and as you will learn in medical school and becoming a doctor, you want to take care of your, your health, and preventative health care is like the best form. So, like, maintaining your cardiovascular fitness is going to help you as a human being overall, but also you're going to study better too. You're getting more blood flowing to your brain. It gives you a break from studying. So the way I did it was I would study, a couple hours, but then I was like, I'm done. Like, my brain is toast. So like now I hit the gym. So I use the gym as a break too. It's like I'm giving it time to, like, just let all that information kind of like absorb into my brain, kind of relax a bit by going to the gym. And then I come back, I'm pumped up, I just, blood's flowing and I'm ready to hit the books again. So um that's a big tip. Definitely exercise.
Well, I'm definitely taking notes. That sounds like a great way to do it. So once you got adjusted to med school and you started figuring out what was working well and what wasn't, what study methods and or resources did you find useful and would you recommend to others?
Yeah, so I think with medical school, a lot of it is experimentation. There's definitely so many different ways out there. Like, people tell you to study. Some people like die hard, like, let's do Anki, or some people like, I only do UWorld. Some people like, I do like, iPad, I draw on the iPad and stuff. I think it's important to try stuff and see what works for you. And I think it's really important to not do something just because everyone else is doing it. Like, I had a ton of classmates, who just only did Anki, and I think Anki is amazing. But also, it's like you're either an Anki or not. I feel like, because Anki is just something that consumes your life if you let it. And I couldn't keep on keeping up with all the cards for Anki, so I gave up. And I felt bad at first because everyone else was doing so many cards. But then I felt so much happier because I didn't have that burden, and I realized I just did better. So then I was like, okay, I just need to do what works for me. Um, don't be afraid to go against the grain when it comes to your study methods as a med student. Like, do what works for you. Take the time to experiment, figure it out, and once you do whatever is like works for you. If going to class is your thing, go to class. But if studying from like the recorded lectures is better for you, then watch the recorded lectures. This is all about your success, and you're learning. And remember this too: you're learning not for yourself. You're now learning for your patients. And I think that, like, even if that sounds cliche, it is really true. And it's honestly the best motivator, because if literally someone will depend on you knowing this knowledge, it makes you go, I need to learn this, and it gives you that motivation to like actually learn it. But with regards to actual resources, I would say you definitely want to have a practice a question bank. So UWorld is like kind of the tried and true one. I think UWorld is a great resource. So either get UWorld or Amboss. And I will say Amboss is somewhat underrated in my opinion. I think Amboss is an incredible resource as a med student, because not only does it have a question bank, but it also has like it's like an encyclopedia of just like medical school knowledge. It's like kind of like set up like Wikipedia in a way. It has like different cards for like different things, and you can click on. It has links to different cards inside of it. So it's just like it's basically Wikipedia plus a practice question bank all in one. So Amboss is highly recommended for me. Um, I'd say also first aid is a great resource as a medical student as well. I think that was very helpful for me. But yeah, just really figure out what works for you. It'll just take some experimenting.
So for those resources that you were talking about, would you use those for your coursework and for prepping for STEP, or both?
Yeah, so actually, when I first started, I was only doing like the PowerPoints and stuff from the class, because like we have a bunch of in-house exams and quizzes and stuff in medical school, and I did not want to be failing those. Like, for me, STEP was like completely out of my mind when I first started. I was just like, I have to pass medical school. I have to like keep up with everything. So I was just doing PowerPoints after PowerPoints. But I will say this: like, you do need to still watch the lectures from medical school. I know some people who only use like the STEP resources for our in-house exams, and they did fine. But I really think that you should do a little bit of both. I think that the sooner you start with like, Anki, if you're going to do Anki, like start sooner than later. Get yourself in the habit of doing that. Start doing the UWorld stuff sooner than later. Just the sooner you get started with the STEP resources, in my opinion, the better. But yeah, I'd still do some of the PowerPoints and stuff, but like I said, it's a lot of experimenting, like I would try, try just doing first aid, if that's working for you, then do it, boards and beyond works for you, then like, just do that for the exams. It is experimenting because the thing is there's so much information, like it'll hit a point, like at least a few months in. I think it didn't really hit me until like several months into medical school where I was like, okay, this is actually a lot. And then I was like, I need to experiment now because I'm starting to fall behind on my coursework. So that's when I was like, okay, maybe I need to use some more high yield resources. I can't just spend all day reviewing all these PowerPoint slides. I need to start hitting something that's like gives me more bang for my buck. That's when I started to try using the more step resources and stuff.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this one's a little more general. What were your favorite and least favorite things about med school?
Ooh, okay. Um, we'll start with least favorite, and we'll end it on a good note then. I'd say something that surprised me that I didn't like was medical school felt like high school all over again, and that was something I didn't expect because I thought like everyone's going to be very sophisticated, mature, like their maturity level is a little bit higher. But I'm also like when I started medical school, I was 25, so I was a little bit older. I had some classmates who were just 21. They did like a BSMD program, so like they're still really young, and they're all great people. But like sometimes like the maturity level was not exactly where I expected it because like, oh, everyone here is like a doctor. It's like not yet, like this is the part where we're training to become that. So there was still like there was things like gossip and stuff like that, and like cliques were being formed and stuff, and in the class, the class size was like almost like 180 or something. It's pretty big because I go to a public medical school, but yeah, there's like cliques being formed and gossip in the group me and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm in high school all over again. So maybe if you want to re-experience high school, then like that's a plus for you. um, but yeah, that was something I just didn't expect. With regards to things I liked a lot about medical school, there was actually a lot of things that like medical school is like really cool for that you don't expect going into. So like I really liked all the things I learned about taking care of my own health. Like that was something I found to be really cool. Is like when you're learning all this material, you're also learning how to take care of your own health. And I was like, I need to stop eating these certain fatty foods for like all these reasons. Like it just kind of it sends a message to you so much stronger when you're like studying it again and again and again. You're like, I need to start taking care of my cardiovascular fitness, or I need to start lifting weights and stuff. Like, it really hits you that much stronger when you're learning a material and you're seeing people who are being debilitated by not doing it. So that was a big benefit to myself was like taking care of my own well-being because of medical school. Um, Also, I think I really liked, the perspective it gave me in general on life because when you see patients who are, in a very unfortunate situation, they're very unhealthy, they wish that they could be in your spot, walking around easily. A lot of these patients that you'll see during your clinical rotations and stuff, like you feel really bad for them, maybe they have congestive heart failure that's really bad. And it's just like, it's sad. And it makes you really appreciate the health and life that you have and makes you realize, how precious life is. And I think that to me, that was something that was a really big perk to being into medical school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gotten some of that just working as a CNA in the hospital. So I'm in the emergency department now. I recently moved, but I was in the intensive care unit for the overwhelming majority of the pandemic. So that's where we had all the COVID patients, right? And just the perspective that you get from working in a hospital setting, it's fantastic. It really gives you so much to be thankful for, but also the patient stories are fantastic. So you working in the ICU, especially, you have some of the gravest of circumstances
Right.
and people that are just in these really dark scenarios. But some of them are so incredible and that they maintain the sunniest disposition. And I mean, I've met some of the most fantastic patients, and it's really given me a lot to grow as a human being just from experiencing that and getting to meet them. So I'm sure that'll continue through med school, but it's already been an incredible blessing so far.
That's awesome, man. And honestly, the ICU is one of the best places to see it. Those are some of the sickest patients out there. And I found that the ICU was a place where you really learn a lot, about yourself too, because you get to see the patient's families a lot. Like that's something I didn't really realize about the ICU is like the patient's families will come by and you get to talk to them and they're obviously really concerned for their family and stuff. So it really helps you to, I guess, like think about your own family and wanting to be better to them as well. So um, yeah, the ICU is definitely like a place that really impacted me as well.
Definitely. So, changing lanes a little bit, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what the residency match program actually is and how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I just finished going through that whole process, so this is a great time to ask me about it. Unfortunately, I'm all too familiar with it. It was quite a long process, and wouldn't say painful, but sometimes it was a little bit of a painful process because you have to do a lot of interviewing for it. So the way like residency I guess, kind of getting matched into a residency spot works is after the 4 years of medical school, so you're about like you're on your fourth year and about halfway through it, the applications open up for residency. And it's like basically the accumulation of all the work that you've done as a medical student. So what makes an applicant is like, you have a personal statement, you're obviously choosing a specialty, or in my case, I actually chose three. So which means I had to do three different personal statements and get letters of rec from like each of them, which is just you know, learn from me. Try and figure it out a little bit earlier. That would be a recommendation though that I have to any of the medical students or incoming medical students is the sooner you can really like figure out like what speaks to you, the better. Um, but but yeah, the process basically is it's the accumulation of everything you've done. So your step scores. And I think now step one is pass fail. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work. But for me, it was our step one score, our step two score, also how well we did during clinical rotations, like the grades we got in clinical rotation and the feedback we got from clinical rotation, and our letters of recommendation and our personal statement. And then once you have all of that, it's kind of similar to the AMCAS application as a premed. It's like a general application that's sent out to all the programs that you want to apply to. So we have, and it's called for us like ERAS. So it's like the electronic residency application service or something like that. And what we do is we take all that stuff, we make an application, and then we pick the schools that we want to send it to. Obviously, the more schools, the more money it costs. So then you send out all the applications to all these different schools, and then the ones who are interested in you based on that application will send you an invite to interview with them. So then you interview with however many schools that offered you an interview, and for me it was virtual interviewing. So kind of similar to this, you're talking to a computer, and that has some perks and maybe some downsides to it as well. Obviously, you save a lot of money by not having to travel to each different city, but it does kind of get tiring and repetitive to do like 20 different Zoom interviews over and over again. Um, but that's honestly a good problem to have. And after you interview, then you have to put together something called a rank list. And the rank list is basically you're just ranking the top programs that you want to go into, and the schools will rank the top candidates they want, and it's like a dating app basically. They're going to match their top whatever your top program is and their top people. If you both like each other, then boom, you're a match, and that's where you end up going for residency. So sorry if that was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but it is quite a process.
No, I really appreciate you going through that. So, as an incoming medical student, I mean, I'm very familiar with the MCAT and the AMCAS and the ACOMAS application, but I have really had no idea of how the match program actually worked. I've heard of it, but I really had no idea how it worked. So it's good insight for me and hopefully for the listeners as well.
Yeah, I'd
Um,
say like oh sorry, go on.
oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you've already gone through the whole process of applying to medical school, it really is just very parallels that process a lot. So like if you've already done gotten to medical school, it's just gonna be a very similar process to applying to residency.
Well, sounds good. I'll be well practiced hopefully by then.
Oh, you
um,
definitely.
So with the med school application process, I found that there were certain strategies that helped to set me up for success to getting accepted to med school. Do you have any strategies for current med students or future med students in the match program to be successful in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I think that some of the biggest things for setting yourself up for success in the match is apart from, of course, doing your best on your clinic and your best on your scores. That's a given. Obviously, if you have great clinical grades and you have great step grades and like that's going to be a huge. We all know that. So the things apart from that that you can do is spending your time wisely during medical school because there's a whole section just like when you're applying to get into medical school, applying into match or into residency is very similar. You have extracurricular things that can add up and show how you spent your time outside of studying and how that would make you good for that specialty. So for instance, you could volunteer at a local clinic and stuff a lot. You could be, a leader. So I was the president of the Salvation Army. We had like a little, like, kind of like an interest group almost. Like there's a local Salvation Army right by the medical school with a lot of people who are living in there and stuff. And, I was the president of that interest group and I helped set up a lot of health screenings. We checked them for like their blood pressure, like their glucose levels. I mean, these were people who would never see doctors and stuff. So that we had a real impact kind of on these people. And that was something I got to talk about on my application, and it looked really nice. So really, the best way to set yourself up for success is find opportunities during medical school to do things outside of just studying. And that's kind of what makes medical school it can be very overwhelming depending on how much you pursue outside of it. You could just do just medical school, just study, just get your grades and stuff, and call it a day. And you'll still match into a residency. But if you want to go for something more competitive, you're gonna have to compete against people who are like pushing out multiple publications of research. The people who are pursuing like higher, like more difficult specialties, or multiple publications sometimes. President of this, president of that. Shadowed this guy, got the great letter of rec, blah, 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 on top of like great scores. So the way to set yourself apart is to, do things that other people, I guess, haven't done. So like, leadership positions is a great way to do that. Volunteering is a great way to do that. Yeah. So just set yourself apart with those things.
Are the activities confined to the 4 years of med school, or do they want anything previous to that as well?
It's a little bit iffy if you want to include things from undergrad. You can maybe include research for the most part, though, that they really just care about what you did during medical school. So it's kind of similar, when you start undergrad, what you did in high school for the most part, unless you took like AP courses, like it doesn't really matter as much anymore. Like, what your SAT score no longer matters ever again once you start college. Same way, your MCAT score no longer ever matters once you start medical school. So it's kind of like, it's a clean slate almost once you start medical school. It's like, okay, awesome. You did all this research and stuff as undergrad. That was to get you into medical school. Once you start in medical school, everything you do is to get you into residency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, in applying to med schools, also, I found that there were certain strategies like applying to enough schools because obviously it's super competitive. So, applying to more schools, if you can afford it, is helpful. And then applying to your in state schools. And then I would recommend to people generally to apply to their out of state private schools because out of state public schools are going to be heavily favoring their in state residents, right? Is there anything like that for the residency match program?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say though residency tends to be a lot more accepting of people from outside states than medical schools are. And also, you made a great point. That was something I wish I knew when I applied to medical school. I applied so broadly. I just applied to like almost everywhere, and it cost so much money to do that. And I just totally would never do that again because the only places I even got like secondaries from, for the most part, like was like in Georgia. Like that was like my best shot. So like when it comes to like applying to medical school, I definitely think that it's like you have a better chance getting into the state that you are in or the surrounding states. But like, of course, you can still get into a medical school across the country, if you're competitive enough. But with residency, though, it's not as strict about that. Like they'll take people from anywhere for the most part. Obviously, like some places maybe prefer people in state a little bit, but for the most part, that's not really a limitation.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I'll definitely carry with all of this wisdom moving forward with me here. Um, so, as we've mentioned a couple times, you've recently matched into surgery, which is awesome. Congrats again, by the way. For everyone watching, that's a huge deal. Um, but I'm curious, as I'm sure many others are, how did you decide on surgery?
So it's honestly interesting because I was originally emergency medicine for the longest time, and I think emergency medicine is a really cool field. Like that was why I was like into it. I was like, oh, this is so cool. You can do so many things and stuff like that. And then like also I was really interested in anesthesiology. It's been a journey for me to kind of like get here. But the thing with surgery was like I was actually very intimidated by doing surgery because I know it's a very hard field to go into and stuff like that. So like I was intimidated by it, but there was something about it. It wasn't that I picked it, almost more so it picked me. And I couldn't get my mind off of surgery, even though it's like I would love to do anesthesiology and stuff like that, you know? And I'd love to do emergency medicine. But when I was on my EM shifts, and I'm like, this is supposed to be what I'm doing, but I keep thinking about surgery. And I just couldn't let that go. And it was getting really close to application time when I decided, like, dude, I need to try, I at least need to put out an app for surgery. Cause like I was so gung ho on like EM for so long. And I was like in the emergency room, and I remember we had some traumas come in and stuff. And I'd see the general surgery residents come in and like kind of run those traumas and like take them off to the OR. And I was just like, I I kind of want to follow them into the operating room. Like I want to be there, you know, operating on them and stuff. And I couldn't, and I just felt something was off. And I was just like, there's something telling me I this might be where I need to be. So I, you know, I put in the application. So and that's where I got in. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. You know, hopefully it doesn't kick my butt too much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was cool to see the match process in your latest video. For people watching, Will made a great video. It was a vlog, right, of match day, and you get to, go to the stadium where everybody was. You got your letters, and then you open it up and you get to see your reaction, and it was fantastic. We can link that in the description below. You should check it out. But just getting to see that process was really cool. So look forward to the future, hopefully in a few years for myself as well.
No, you'll do great, man. I already know it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have any specialties in mind or anything like that yet?
Yeah, so people ask me that quite a bit. And just with how early I am in the process, my default answer is just that I'm going in open minded, because I'm sure
There
just
you
like
go.
undergrad, many people change their minds several times, which is a good example from EM to surgery, right? Um, Having experience in the ICU and the emergency department, those are definitely on my radar of things that I think I might like to do. Um, Regardless of what I end up doing, though, I would like to do something with the preventive side of medicine as well. So, whether that's just through the content that I'm putting out on the channel and things like that, I would like to push out some of that content. And then, maybe I could end up working in an emergency department full time and then on the side doing things on the preventive um, content as
I
well.
love it. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Um, so the last question that I have for you here is, with everything that you know now, what advice would you have for your younger self, either as a pre-med or a med student?
Okay. So I guess I'll start with me as a pre-med student first. Um, as a pre-med student, I would say, you know, for me, the biggest thing is actually I was very, very much like I'd never even considered looking at like Instagram or like YouTube to follow pre-med influencers or anything like that. Like I didn't even consider that at all actually for some reason. I was just so focused on what I was doing. But I do think it would have been helpful if I surrounded myself with more pre-med people who were like-minded and stuff like that. For the most part, like I had a few friends who were pre-med, but like I was kind of like the only person I knew who was like on this path. And I think it would have been nice if like I knew more people also going down the same path, so I could just, you know, have people I could bounce ideas off of or vent to if like, you know, they would understand what I'm going through. So I think like as a pre-med student, that would have been awesome. Um, if I was to give advice to my early self as a med student, I would say, you know, developing balance in my life as soon as possible was what I should have prioritized. I think that I was so like, I need to keep up with class. I need to do all this and that, that I really just got so tunnel visioned into like just studying so much that I burnt myself out really, and I just was not enjoying medical school as much. And it's just, I regret that. I really wish that I started exercising more earlier on. I didn't really start until my third year, and I just started exercising earlier and taking better care of my health. Taking that time to just watch Netflix and not feel guilty for doing it. Actually just caring for myself. I think doing that would have been by far the best thing I could have done starting medical school.
That's great advice, man. And you're crushing it now. I see the stories that you post on Instagram and you're pretty ripped. So keep it up.
I'm just trying to take a page out of your book.
No way. Is there anything that you want to add or something that you think we missed?
I think that, for the most part, I know the pre-med process is a very overwhelming process, and I just want to say to all the pre-meds out there, don't let one bad day or two bad days, or a week of bad days be what stops you from going to medical school. I know the process is hard, and probably most, once your friends are all pre-meds, they probably won't understand exactly what you're going through, but really, just be nice to yourself. It's a hard process. Everyone who goes through it's going to struggle a bit. You're going to have your ups and downs with this whole process. So just really, be nice to yourself, and you're going to get there. If you stay persistent, I really think that if you stay persistent and focused on it, you can definitely get into medical school. No, one bad grade is going to stop you from that. So just keep your head up high. You're going to do fine.
Great advice and a strong close for us here. So thanks again for joining me, man. And for everyone watching, you should head over to his channel. It's Med with Will, and follow him on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, obviously. Follow him on Instagram, and feel free to reach out to either one of us if you're going through a similar process. I think we're both happy to help anybody to the best of our ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Take care.
All right. See you.
All right, that wraps it up for today. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to tune into part 2 over on Will's channel, where we're talking about all things pre-med and what it takes to be a successful pre-med student. I will go ahead and link that up here and down in the description below. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.